Buenas a todos, soy Boyu, bienvenidos de nuevo a What Remains of Edith Finch. Vamos ahora con la historia de Gregory, uno de tus tíos, en teoría, los hermanos de un hermano de tu madre, ¿verdad? Gregory, sí señor. Me lo estoy pasando todo del tirón para no perder el hilo. Me he dado una vueltecilla, me he tomado un café que creo que lo que va a venir es duro. Venga, vamos. Contrato de divorcio de Sam Finch. O sea, tu abuelo, que se divorció de Kai, lo sabíamos. Ya se ha mencionado.
Dear Kay, do you remember the way Gregory used to laugh when he thought he was alone? Like something funny was happening, but only he could see it. I think he saw things the rest of us don't.
Hay que tenerlo aquí. ¿Me quiere pillar? Se acabó el baño, Gregory. Es hora de...
Hello? Sam, I told you I don't want to talk right now.
A la izquierda están los diálogos.
I wonder what he saw.
Ah.
What his world was like. He reminded me so much of Calvin. Lost in his imagination. Whatever it was, he saw. It sure made him happy.
Tirororito, tirori. ¿Me ayudáis?
I know how silly it sounds. But I worried about a baby being too happy. But I could feel him slipping away.
Sorry about that, Gregory.
I know you did everything you could. Maybe if I hadn't called that night.
Damn it.
O sea, estamos hablando que es Kai y llamó Sam.
Hold on, I don't want
I wish he could have told us about the world he saw.
Se ahogó.
There's so much I don't understand about Gregory, about everything. But I know what happened wasn't your fault. I'm sure he's happy. And he'd want you to be happy too.
Uf, qué duro.
Good luck, Kay. Love, Sam.
Pobrecillo. Mira, tiene todo. El jabón, los soldaditos, la ballena y los patitos. Uf, me ha dejado chof. ¿Esto qué es? Por si alguien es bombero.
I can't imagine my mom ever writing poetry, and yet...
Gus, ¿qué pasó con Gus? El otro hermano. Ok.
A poem for Gus, who always said the wedding was a bad idea. Our father never hit us kids, at least not very hard, before the day my brother said with teenage disregard that he'd be dead before he'd see a wedding in our yard. My father made him come, of course, but Gus stood far apart, just flew his kite and bottled up the storm inside his heart.
¿Qué años tenía Gus? Vale, era mayorcito. 10, 11, 12, 13 años. Bueno, se maneja curioso.
I tried to talk him out of it, but though he'd never met her, we don't need a stepmom were the words that I
Madrastra, claro, por el divorcio. Esto estaba reventado, la estatua Tiki.
Photos came, Dad ordered him to come here. But Gus declined and as a sign held up his middle finger.
Pero Sam se volvió a casar. Claro, pero aquí no aparece la madrastra.
The wind picked up and panicked geese appeared and quickly went. But all the humans did that day was go inside the tent.
Va a caer un rayo. Por eso la silla que estaba en el árbol que vimos en el vídeo anterior, que estaba en un árbol encajada. Vino un huracán, un algo.
The rain came down in buckets then, but no one seemed afraid that nature might destroy the tent our dad had crudely made. The thunder sounded much too close and full of angry power. But all my father said to this was, "Make the music louder." I wish that I could truly say I thought about you on that day. Out there on the beach alone, just you, the wind, the sea and foam. But I didn't, until we found you.
Le reventó una carpa.
She never talked about him, but Mom told me once if I was a boy, they were going to name me Gus.
Dawn es la madre que está muerta, pero aquí no aparece. Alzar la bandera a las 7:30, desayuno a las 8, tiempo de silencio a las 11, deberes Dawn, sweep y basura. Sweep no sé qué es. Gas, mop es fregar, me parece. Mow yard será cortar el césped. Greg será un bebé, muy bien. Rutina, John Rope 100%, o sea, saltar a la comba. Jumping jacks, hop hop 150%. Push-ups, los crunches y run to mailbox and back. Es que es verdad que el buzón estaba lejos. Madre mía, pero si los tenéis mamadísimos.
My mom moved up to the loft after her brothers died.
Mira, al ático se fue la madre.
At the time, it was as far away as she could get.
Estamos embarazadas de 22 semanas, ¿no? Dijo. Se fue aquí. No está mal. La Biblia, bueno. Vamos a ver.
Religion was another thing my mom never talked about, but I think it helped her a lot after her dad died.
Hombre, es que menudo palo. Sam el cazador.
She
Ese es
spent
mi
a summer
padre.
building houses in Calcutta, where she met my dad, Sanjay.
Sí, se le ve. Sanjay. ¿Cómo? Fly to India. Buah, te estrellaste en un avión. Mis padres se estrellaron en un avión.
My mom moved to India a week after graduation and got a job teaching English. Louis was born a year later.
Louis es el mayor. Del 88, del 92 y Edith del 99. Edith es la menor de los tres. Que Lewis murió con 12 añitos, nada más. Y Milton con 11. Joder.
When my dad died, I don't think Mom knew where else to go.
Vale, no se murió el padre primero.
I'm sure Edie was happy to have her back.
Eddie es su abuela. Mira, Milton, estaba por todos lados.
The house had to get a little bigger, but Edie was used to that.
Si es verdad que esto empieza a crecer hacia arriba. Perdón, me he equivocado. Pero bueno, Dawn y Eddie era su abuela. Que es nuestra tatarabuela. Qué movida.
And for a while, things were good. Almost normal.
Daban clases aquí. Mira, Edith, Lewis y Milton. Fact or fiction. La historia de nuestra familia.
But it didn't last.
Método científico. Observación, preguntar, investigación, research, búsqueda. Hipótesis, supongo. Experimentar, sacar datos y la conclusión. Mira, Edith Finch. Este quiero saber yo, el primero. De Odin.
The beginning of the end was Milton's 10th birthday, when Edie gave him a castle.
Eddie le regaló un castillo a Milton, el hermano mediano. Pero Eddie también sabía construir, como Sven. Porque Sven ya se había muerto. Está sellado también. Habrá que cotillar. Oye, pues mola que te cagas porque hay pintura amarilla. Este es el Milton, hemos dicho, el del medio. El pinturas. El que hizo el gato, todo el rollo. No, pues si dormía aquí muy bien. Aunque estas maderas... Entraba un poquito el airecillo. Este es el artista. Mira, Milton. El de la corona, es verdad. Ah, porque tenía un castillo. Entiendo la corona en la tumba ahora. El pincel mágico.
Milton Finch in The Magic Paintbrush.
Achú. Muy guapo.
I was 4 when Milton disappeared.
Y ya está, es lo que explican, que desapareció con esto. Pintó una puerta y se fue. Pero no me dicen nada de Milton. Esto no me ha dicho absolutamente nada. Hay cosas que no entiendo
Mom
por
spent
qué.
months searching for my brother. Then she sealed the doors.
Es que hay cosas que no entiendo y no me cuadran. Porque, por ejemplo, Milton no me cuadra su muerte. Gus sí. Gregory también. Walter es raro porque salió hacia las vías que en teoría no hay camino por donde salimos para que viniera un tren porque se acababa la isla. Sam me lo creo Calvin, bueno, pues se cayó por un barranco. Ok. Bárbara, raro, pero puede pasar. Pero Molly, que se transformaba en bichos, tal, no sé qué. Y al final ella misma volvió y se autocomió. No me creo tampoco esa muerte, es rara. Entonces la de Milton y la de Molly me huelen raro. Y la de Walter también. Las demás, ok. Entonces no sé si hay un hilo que une todo, un asesino en serie. Porque que escriba Molly en su diario, me siento debajo, está esperando el bicho que me duerma, pero lo que sé seguro es que estaré deliciosa. No sé. Me parece un poco extraño.
Whatever Milton had found in the house, Mom didn't want it getting out.
¿Ves? Milton encontró algo en la casa. Rarete. Hay que subir hacia arriba. Ah, qué majos. Niña, mueve los cántaros. Eso será el final del juego, supongo. Ya no tengo más casa que cotillear. Lo que me sorprende es que haya electricidad y todo funcione. Y que no hayan reventado la casa. Bueno, si está...
Mom definitely blamed Edie, but I think Lewis blamed himself.
Mamá. Ella culpaba a su abuela y el hermano. Uno de los hermanos. Esto está
After he
sellado.
graduated, he just spent more and more time in his room. Until Mom got him a job at the cannery.
A Lewis. Pero es que Lewis palmó con 12 años. Tampoco... Claro, es que me queda Lewis de la familia. Punto. Y Eddie. O sea, con 12 años ya curraba el chaval. Ay, no quería subir, quería mirar lo de la derecha. ¡Baja! ¡Edith! Que ahí parece que voy a entrar. Bueno, esto será luego, seguro. ¿Aquí dónde voy? Está roto. Pero ya me quedo tranquilo que por ahí no hay camino. Joder, pues no sé yo si dejo que los chavales vayan por aquí andando. Ostras, está alto. Sube. A ver, que para sentarse aquí está guay, pero volvemos a lo mismo. ¿Te vas a columpiar aquí? Sensación de peligro no tenían. Para adentro. Alguien fumaba petardos aquí.
Lewis's room smelled
Pero vamos.
very, very familiar. That part of him lived on.
Ah, o sea que mi hermano le pegaba a los canutos. Madre mía, pues venirte fumado a ver esto, yo creo que te pega un amarillo. Este cuadro. Joder, todo lo que tienes aquí, Lewis. Es Lewis, ¿no? ¡Ay, Lewis! ¿Cómo nos gusta lo que nos gusta? Joder, doble pantalla y todo. Se tomaba sus cosillas, ¿eh? Estos botes... Tenía bichos muy raros. Este tío iba muy drogado. A ver.
Dear Mrs. Finch, as Lewis's psychiatrist, I can understand your desire for an explanation. As I see it, the trouble began in January, shortly after we convinced your son to seek treatment for substance abuse. Newly sober, I believe Lewis first noticed the monotony of his daily life.
¡Oh!
He kept working at the cannery. But he withdrew part of himself.
Perdió la mano.
In our sessions, I saw the same behavior. His mind began to...
A ver, tengo que meter la mano ahí seguro, pero...
wander.
¡Ah, que soy yo andando!
I asked him to describe it.
Espera, que sigo trabajando, ¿vale? ¡Ah! ¡Eh! ¡Ay, me pilló! Espera, meto cuchillo, saco tripas. Bueno, entiendo que hay que
He
andar.
said he started small. imagining a labyrinth. He'd feel his way about. Then something moved. Bats
Murciélago.
and toads.
Pero... perdón, es que estoy tocando todos los botones, la verdad. Por aquí.
And things that have not names. He knew it was all in his head. But he took it very seriously. I had hoped he'd find himself.
A ver, que no puedo estar limpiando peces y conduciendo al tío este. Soy hombre, una cosa cada poco. Me voy a cortar la mano 100%.
But he found something more. I worried about him then.
Está muy
Daydreaming at the
guapo esto.
cannery. I spoke with his boss,
Se va a cortar una mano.
but he said Lewis had become a model employee. Methodical, tireless, focused,
Veréis la mano.
like a whole new Lewis. So I let him go on. I even encouraged him. It seemed very promising at first.
Tengo que echar las cuentas. Espera, 88. 1998. No, claro, es que me olvido del año 2000. O sea, tenía 88, 98, 10 años, 2008, 20 años. Tenía 22, claro que podía currar ya. Digo, es que es muy pequeño. No.
He told me he'd made a new friend.
Perderte.
On the edge of a city he named Lewis Topia.
Me van a pegar un
Built the
susto.
city up slowly, brick by brick. Then he made musicians. And songs for them to play.
Qué mal va a
Talked
acabar.
about starting a band.
Esto
And he was
acaba en
always
tragedia.
humming something. Every day his imagination grew stronger.
Se ha jodido.
He no longer spoke at the cannery. But his chopping was as reliable as ever.
Pero troceaba con la misma precisión de siempre.
Then one day it struck him that all the cheering crowds, even the stones under his feet, were all in his imagination. So he could do whatever he wished. He held an election for mayor. And he won.
Como Mario Bros.
They begged him to stay, but his mind was already wandering. It became a game for him. He'd conquer a city, then immediately push on. New Louisville. St. Louis.
Madre mía.
He started drifting away from our reality. Minneapolis. Until one day he forgot to go home from the cannery.
Al salir de la
Even
servidor.
as his mother pleaded with him, part of Lewis kept sailing on.
Perdón, que me choco, es que no puedo mirar la
In
mano.
Louisburg, he heard rumors of
Una apuesta reina. Está todo lleno de
Handsome
colores.
queen.
Espera, que se me acumulan los peces. ¡Guapa! Muy bonita.
The queen was on her own quest for...
Serpientes siniestras. No, hombre, arcoíris radiantes. Cosas bonitas, no quiero que le dé...
rainbows.
No quiero que le dé una pájara con cosas malas. ¡Hala! Espera, que los estoy tirando todos. ¡Ole!
He followed the sound of her
De su... Sitar eléctrico, un arpa de plata.
silver harp. His chase led him to a golden palace east of the sun and west of the moon.
Oye, espero que me paguen por tanto cortar pescado. Madre mía.
Even then, his logic remained sound. He knew the world was all in his imagination.
Me están poniendo muchos peces, espera.
But he was so proud of having created it. In his own eyes, he'd become something greater than a king.
¡Ay, la mano!
For someone who'd never known success in the real world, I think it was overwhelming. And then it struck him that the real Lewis was not the one chopping salmon, but the one climbing the steps of a golden palace.
Ya verás.
My imagination is as real as my body, he told me. It was hard to argue with him.
Esto ya soy yo, Lewis. Hasta mi taquilla. Otra vez el dibujo este de mierda y comida china. Le gustaba el vicio. Todos los vicios.
Began to forget the world we know.
Oh, se va a tirar a una trituradora, a un algo. Madre mía, será
I
por
think it
peces.
pained him to remember Lewis, the cannery worker.
Huele mal, Lewis. No, el pescado. Tu integridad.
He began to despise the man with a royal contempt.
¡Trabaja! Ah, pues si este es un Finch. Ah, este soy yo. No me digas. Sí, sí, voy a tener que subir por las escaleras a la máquina. Madre mía. Este es Lewis el trabajador, entiendo, ¿no? Y esto es mi parte imaginaria que
I still
subo.
thought I could save him.
Se metió
Even
aquí.
after he said he was being crowned king over all the lands of wonder. The palace would be packed with his companions.
Estos son los juguetillos que he visto fuera cuando he dicho, mira aquí todo lo que tiene. Tenía estos juguetes que son los aldeanos. Mira, un Michi.
Including the wise Calico who'd insisted on advising him.
Mira, Molly, el gato. Este es el gato de la familia. Majestad.
His queen waited, holding his crown.
Los
There was
peces.
only one thing left to do. Bend down his head. And the rest I think you know. Mrs. Finch, your son was a kind man who will be missed by all of us who knew him.
Ah, se cortó la cabeza, madre mía. Ostras,
My brother
Lewis.
was really cool. I wish you could have met him.
Sí, vamos, cojonudo. Hombre, predroguitas, entiendo. Mira, ¿ves los aldeanos? Eso es un aldeano de los que estaban bailando.
He was so proud of being Indian. I think for him, it was a way to be something other than just a Finch.
Pobre Lewis. Oh, qué mal final.
On the way
¿Qué?
back from Lewis's funeral, my mom told me to start packing.
Claro, es verdad que nos fuimos en cuanto fue el funeral de Lewis. Queda
She
la
waited
abuela.
until the day before we left to tell Edie.
A Eddie. Bueno, nuestra tatarabuela.
I'm not sure if she wanted to make it easier or harder.
Esta es la habitación de la abuela. Estaba aquí arriba del todo. O de la madre. Me queda la madre y Eddie.
If we'd stayed.
¿Qué es esto?
But I understand why we left.
¿Esto de quién es? De la madre. Dijo que vivía en el ático. No creo que la abuela viva aquí. Edith Mom.
My mom ended up leaving everything behind.
Mira, 90 cumpleaños. Era su madre y nuestra tatarabuela. Don Finch, Grandmas. Para enseñar y para aprender. Dawn Finch. Escribió libros. Sanjay Kumar. De mi padre. Oh Dios, has sido llamado. Has llamado a tu sirviente. Bueno, estoy yo para rezar. Amén.
What happened that night had been coming for a long time.
Se tiró la madre desde aquí.
Maybe you should have come sooner.
Edith. Estamos altos.
But it had to end one way or another. All that's left now is to tell you about that last night.
Esto es de la madre porque en la tumba tenía un libro con muchas letras. Que aparte que era escritora, está claro, pero esto, con todas las letras, ¿qué? Mira, Edith. No, ¿Edith? ¿Soy yo? ¿Estoy muerta? ¿Esta es mi habitación o qué? ¿Cómo? Edith Finch. Abre, abre.
That whole last day, Edie just watched us pack and didn't say a word. Until supper, when she raised her glass and said,
To our final night together, and all our final nights apart.
Grandma, you know what I said about alcohol. Some of your medications are very
Edith,
specific.
I left a present for you in the hallway. Why don't you go open it? The grown-ups have to argue now.
I'm sorry, you're right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our last...
I'm not leaving.
Edith, you're excused.
No se va a una residencia. Yo qué sé, la abuela le petó la patata por mezclar alcohol con medicamentos.
The power had been shut off that morning, but Edie always had plenty of candles. When my mom sealed the library, I don't think she knew about the other entrance. Or that Edie had a key to it.
That thing you're afraid of isn't going to end when you leave the house. Edith has a right to know these stories.
My children are dead because of your stories. I think it's best if Edith and I leave tonight. We'll have the nursing home send a van for you in the morning, okay?
Historia de los Finches por Edith Finch, la abuela.
Dear Edith, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you, but there's only time for one. This is about what happened on the night you were born. That night, the tide went way, way out.
La casa vieja. La casa vieja.
It was the first and last time I ever saw the old house aground. There'd been an earthquake out in the middle of the ocean. They called it the lowest tide in 1,000 years. God, it smelled awful. You know, I've seen that house every day of my life. But I never thought I'd go back to it.
¿Y tanto?
When the fog rolled in, I lost my way. I got turned around.
He obedecido, he dado la vuelta.
I started seeing things. Things I'd forgotten had ever existed. But when I saw them, they felt like old friends. That night, a lot of things came back to me. Or maybe I came back to them.
Llegué a la casa. Perdón, le estaba dando triángulo para abrir y no sé por qué le he dado.
Things I can't explain, but that I need you to try and...
Edith, what are you doing in here?
It's mine.
Edith!
Mom, you're gonna rip it! Let go!
Ah, tiro de
I
él.
kicked and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car.
¿Y?
I never saw Great Grandma Edie again.
Oh.
The next morning, the van came to pick her up, but she was already gone. After that, we moved around a lot.
Esto lo muevo yo.
We both tried to make the best of it. A few years went by. My mom didn't like to talk about it. But she started getting sick a lot. She got better for a while, and then she didn't. And then I was alone. The last Finch left alive. Until I found out about you.
De la tatarabuela.
I'm still not sure what to tell you about all this. If we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes. And appreciate how strange and brief all of this is. This journal was supposed to be for you. But now I hope you'll never see it. I just want to meet you. And tell you all these stories myself.
Mi hija.
But I guess if you're reading this now... things
Porque
didn't
estaba
work out
embarazada.
that way.
Esto es un parto.
This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
Ah, estoy muerta ya. ¿Y la abuela? ¿Qué encontró en la casa? Será ya mi hijo, claro. Mira, la casa está ya reventada. ¡Qué bueno! Tremendo escalofrío me ha dado. Me ha gustado. Shirley Dallas. Un poco tributo para ti, mi reina. Estos ya son los que han hecho un poquito el juego. Tiene pinta. Pues, What Remains of Edith Finch, pues que vaya nombrecito. Completado. Muchísimas gracias a todos por completar este juego conmigo. Ahí está el trofeito. Y os espero en el próximo. Un saludo.